In today's video, I'll share with you the biggest, or probably one of the biggest mistakes beginners to watercolor painting make, and how it absolutely destroys your chances of producing a meaningful painting for you, something you consider meaningful. And then I'll show you how to solve it. In fact, I'm going to prove to you that it is solvable, and I'm going to show you exactly how. After watching this video, you may notice your paintings becoming freer, looser, more unique, more your own, and more expressive and more daring. So let's talk about the huge mistake, and this often leads to paintings that look like this. Now, what is that big mistake? Let me show you as I demonstrate exactly how I would do it if I were just getting started in watercolor. I was just a beginner. So the big mistake is overthinking and overplanning every single move. So a lot of beginners, the way they paint is they get a lot of water and paint on their palette, as you can see here, and they just go ahead and with a very full brush, they just start to paint. And you know what? Let's go even more accurate. Smaller brush, right? Smaller brush, and they very carefully, they make sure they get each and every detail down. And then, oops, I went outside the line, so let me go ahead and fix that. Maybe I succeeded, maybe I made it even worse, and slowly but gradually kind of cover and paint the whole thing. I know you get the point, but it is important to show you this all the way through, okay? It is really important. And being very careful not to step out of the line, and that's the shadow. So what do you do here? Maybe we pause here, and then by the time you go back to this area, maybe it started to dry on you. And then maybe you want to mix a darker color, right, for the shadow. So you start mixing something you think is darker, and I see this all the time. And then you go, okay, so this should be darker, right? And you put the paint on paper and you can't really understand why it doesn't go darker. And like the worst case scenario is coming back with really wet paint without even noticing, thinking because I'm using a darker color, maybe a brown, that I can just come back here and start to darken things. And you see how I already start to develop weird cauliflowers, and then maybe I missed this spot, so I'm gonna go ahead and do this and do that, and it ends up like looking kind of like this, right? There's a lot of emphasis on details that don't really matter, and if I let this dry and show you another wash, it'll be a disaster. So now it's proving time. I have 3 brushes, 1, 2, 3. What I'm gonna show you now is how I use different brushes for every one of these other pairs. I'm going to use different colors, and I'm going to paint them all simultaneously. And I want to show you how it's not the technique that makes the painting good. I know it's hard to believe. It's not that. It's something else. So I'm going to just get started. So that's 1. I'm going to do them all simultaneously, hopefully. I'm not going too crazy here. It's been a while since I used this particular brush. Let's grab this one. I don't have time to let it go back to its wet state. So let's do this. You know what? Let's step out of lines here. And maybe let's go with something awkward like this here. Okay? Mess. Big mess. Now I get to move it in the direction I want. So I'm seeing there's a nice highlight here. So I don't know. Let's grab a bit of this yellow that I have here, and let's just start to gradually put this in balance. So I'm gonna go ahead, kind of turn this into the green I'm after, and maybe I'm gonna go over the stem as well while I'm at it, and go kind of strong. You know, I see a lot of interesting oranges here down below, so I'm gonna just go ahead and put that in. And let's pause. Let's go into this one. So for this one, what am I seeing? I'm gonna grab a bit of red here. I'm just gonna start feeding this red. You know, I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm not sure, but let's just go with that. Let's put red on the shadow. Let's go ahead and continue with this one. I'm gonna just add water, kind of keep the same color. I'm using 3 different brushes, both for variety's sake, but also to show you how the brush doesn't matter as well. Now I'm going to grab direct from my palette. Let's go with Phthalo Blue, and just start indicating where the shadow begins, okay? So I don't know, I see a nice shadow there, and you know what? I see a bit of really nice reflected light here. So let's go ahead and include that bit of warm reflected light that's slightly lighter than the shadow here actually. Let's pause now. Let's go back to this one. I'm going to do the same here with a nice little reflected light, maybe a bit of orange, something like that. Look at how nice this looks. And let's start establishing the shadow underneath. So it should be a little darker, but it's still quite warm. So I'm going to just put something here. Notice how I'm not really overthinking anything here. I'm just placing paint on paper. Let's go with this one. I like how I'm seeing all the primary colors separate. So let's go with the flow and kind of continue with that. I'm gonna map out the light and shadow, and let's increase the yellowness of the lower section. Right around here, I really like what I'm seeing. We're using 3 different brushes, different colors, different approaches, one might say, and it's still gonna look good at the end. And the reason is not my technical prowess. Sorry, I bumped into this one with the wrong brush. My apologies. And here I see this very nice vibrant green, so I'm gonna include that. Right through the middle here, it goes a little warmer, so I'm gonna pour that warm color in there, something like that. And then right around here, I'm gonna increase the red. I'm gonna keep this a nice pure red. And I do want to grab a stronger green for this section. I don't know why it speaks to me. Preserve the shadowy area, so I'm gonna do this, just a bit of lifting work. And then come back with whatever I have here and kind of build in where the shadow goes, right? Now you see, again, I'm not really overthinking anything here. I'm just painting for my enjoyment. Let's actually create a strong core shadow in the middle. The darkest on the parent here is going to be reflected light. So I'm going to go through here, and I'm going to strengthen the shadow right here. And I kind of like this one, so I'm going to let that one go. I'm going to go back to this one. Let's use a warm kind of brown for the bottom here. See, something like this that looks really, really nice, and extend that all the way to the cast shadow. And you know what? I'm missing a bit of warmth. So let me go ahead and include some warmth here. I'm going to keep the warmth all the way up from the stem. Something like so. And like this. Just poured some water in there. Now let's do the same thing we did on the other one in a bit of green reflected light that I kind of like, using this very opaque lemony yellow right around here. See, kind of around here. And I really like that warmth down here. It's a bit dark, so let's go with that. And you know what? I really like that you can see all the individual colors here. So I'm going to preserve that. So blue here. And then I'm going to switch over to a bit more of a red, kind of down the middle, I think, all the way to the bottom. Kind of connect it with the shadow, add a bit of yellow to the shadow. Don't know why. A little bit of blue. Maybe I can go ahead and add darkness to the stem right through here. And I can probably do the same, trying to be consistent here. Now, before we get to the final details, here's how I would paint this if I were, again, that first kind of painter. I'd go with another wash. And I'll say, okay, this is green, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and paint it with a bit of a green mix, what I have here. Maybe the shadow, right? Maybe I'm painting the shadows and the shapes here very carefully. And you see, this is going nowhere, right? This is the problem. Like, if you really want to create something meaningful, something with a punch, something that is expressive, something that's accurate, something that is good looking, something that's fascinating. And look, I'm going to give myself like the benefit of the doubt and say, yeah, I'm going to vary even the colors, you know? And you can say art is always beautiful. This still looks good. But I mean, if you compare all of these, and this is me, again, giving myself the benefit of the doubt that that's how I painted back then. I did not paint that way back then. So if you really want to create something meaningful in your own eyes, a lot of it comes down to trusting your own intuition, even when you lack in the technique department, even when you're still not sure how to paint, how to execute upon your technique, even when you're uncertain of everything else. All you know is, I'm going to put some paint to paper and express myself. Already at that stage, you can see when someone is just creating something from their soul, and it automatically looks better. It really does automatically look so much better than if you're really trying to control each and every aspect and then coming back and thinking to yourself, okay, I have to blend that edge to start to really dig into the paint there. Maybe this isn't dark enough. Like worst case, you come back with a very wet wash that's as wet as what you put there initially. Just goes nowhere, and you don't have time to let the brush marks really do their effect, to be effective. One brush mark, another brush mark, another brush mark. What I'm doing here, I'm not presenting you with a rule. I'm not telling you this is how you should paint. What I am sharing with you here is one element you might have ignored for years. You might have ignored this specific element that could bring out so much from your work. Something that could make your work 10 times better tomorrow, right? With no additional effort necessary. That's the thing, right? You don't really need to exert more effort to paint this way. I hope I've proven to you that you can use different brushes, different techniques, different ways of, but if you go with the flow in a way, watercolor is very rewarding to that, more than other media. Even if you're uncertain, even if you don't know what colors to use, even if you don't know exactly what details you want to include, and you look at the reference photo and you're confused, even in all of these instances, if you want to go from this and this to something that has more soul, that speaks to others more, a lot of it comes down to putting something on paper and just dealing with it. That's a bridge, a chasm that's very difficult for many to cross. They stay on the other side. They never get to the other end where they just have pure fun and joy from the process. I hope someone out there finds this useful. Thank you so much for watching. Check out my watercolor courses if you want to improve your paintings, if you want to take them to the next level. All the links are in the description box below, and I want to thank everyone who supports me over on Patreon. If you want to receive access to some exclusive processes and receive credits at the end of my videos, that's how you get there. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next one.